The Biden administration would like you to believe that the crisis at the border is over. They've been secretly working with Mexico to take pressure off the border and secretly flying illegal immigrants into the country to take pressure off the border. We're tired of the BS. To help me better understand it, I have America's Sheriff Mark Lamb. Sheriff Lamb, thank you so much for being with me today.
Oh, thank you for having me on again. I appreciate it.
So you are a beloved sheriff in Arizona, an ardent defender of the border and the Constitution, and you're running for U.S. Senate. The first question I want to understand better is your governor, Katie Hobbs. She's a Democrat. And ever since she took office, she's essentially erased all the border efforts and gains that were made under the previous governor. Do you believe that this is of her own accord, or is she receiving orders from outside of Arizona for the state to be flooded with illegal immigrants?
You know, Stephen, that's a great question, because I think a lot of people are seeing now there's a real the Democrat Party, the liberals, are lockstep on their agenda items. And so I would, while I don't have any direct information, I would have to believe that they are certainly in her ear as to what the policies and what the long-term goals are of the Democrat Party and this certainly this administration. I will give the governor credit in one sense that she has had several meetings with us as sheriffs. Now, clearly she's I appreciate giving us ear. Now the question will be is, will she actually sign the bills that will benefit us in local law enforcement as it relates to the border? So I don't want to take that credit away from her, because she actually has met with us more than our previous governor. But she certainly, we need her to do more on the border. We absolutely need her to do more and continue to get us the funding we need to be able to help Border Patrol. But I certainly think that there is a long-term goal with this party, the Democrat Party, the liberals, the progressives, that I think they are certainly pushing. And I would have to believe that there is some pressure from up high to make sure that the state of Arizona continues on the path that they're currently on.
Okay. That's good to know. The reason I ask is just taking one topic, trying to remove Donald Trump from the ballot in Colorado. Once that started heading towards the Supreme Court, it started to come out that there was a coordinated network behind the scenes, not even in Colorado, where they were targeting the judges, which state would have the most liberal position against Donald Trump, and that this whole thing was coordinated by the Democrats from basically Washington, D.C. and New York. And so I just wondered if you had seen anything. Speaking of New York, they are blaming Texas and Arizona for the illegal immigrant crisis and rising crime within New York City. But isn't Texas and Arizona dealing with a number of illegals on a daily basis that dwarfs any numbers that New York is dealing with?
Yeah. And I'm going to answer that in just a second. But I just wanted to say to you, for anybody that doesn't agree with what you were just saying about how there's a coordinated effort, Fannie Willis and Wade, they had shown that they had had visits to the White House prior to these charges. And I think that Letitia James and some of these other attorneys, clearly they're in cahoots with what's going on at the national level. So I just wanted to make that clear. Texas and Arizona are not the ones who have been trafficking the people up to New York and Chicago. For every one bus that Texas sent, there was probably at least 10 buses or planes of people that your own government, this administration, bus to those big cities. What they've been trying to do, and I've been saying this for years, at least the 2-3 years that this has been going on, I've been saying, look, they're taking those people to your cities. And pretty soon they're not going to be able. It's like a trash can. When you first throw the first piece, I'm not insinuating that the people are trash. Yeah. Please don't take that. What I'm saying is, if I take a piece of something and I throw it in a bag, the first piece in there doesn't really make much of a difference. But eventually it'll overflow. And that's what's happened in this country. We've let so much in that the bag can't hold it anymore. And what they're trying to do is blame Texas and Arizona and maybe even Florida. The reality is, this government, this administration has trafficked more people into those cities by way of bus and plane than any state has done by a country mile. So that is just false information coming out from this administration.
Yeah, one of the stories I read is that the mayor of El Paso, Texas, who is a Democrat, he has sent so many busloads to Chicago and New York, and yet they continue to blame Governor Abbott of Texas for their problem. Then we find out through an exclusive investigative report from the Daily Mail that Biden himself and the White House flew over 33,000 people directly into New York. And what did they do? The next day, they held a press conference to blame Texas for all of the problems. And so it's this disconnect with the media protecting the Democrat liberals, the progressives, that this is a Republican problem. But then underneath that story, you see that they are just shoveling people into Chicago and into New York. It's really unfair, and I appreciate you helping me expose that.
Yeah, no. And thank you for bringing it to light too, because I think there's so many issues that people are not realizing. The government banks on this. They bank on the fact that the average citizen is not going to know who's moving these people around. The problem is they've had so many millions of people come in, they can't hide it anymore. To give you an example, I was talking to a sheriff out of Kansas. He said, I got a town that has 12,000 people in the town. We have 1,000 illegals in the town now. I mean, that is a huge percentage of people that have been coming into this country. You know, if you do the math, I mean, I think personally, there's probably 50 plus million illegals that have come in over, decades. Certainly over the last 3 years, this administration is admitted to like 7 million or 8 million that have got apprehensions. And then you got the gotaways. So the gotaways are putting you over 10 million people. 10 million people distributed through 50 states is a lot of people. And they're not going to all 50 states. They're going to, states where there's a lot of work. And that they can't hide it anymore. That's the issue.
Yeah. Chicago and New York seem to get the most media attention, but a big story that a lot of people are missing is that the city of Denver is actually collapsing under the weight of illegal immigrants. Their hospital systems are on the brink of failure. You have all these community centers that are now housing illegal immigrants. But just yesterday, or excuse me, just going into the weekend, the mayor of Denver said, we're going to scale back tens of millions of dollars in funding for police and for fire services, essentially defunding the police for non-citizens. And he said that we are all in this together to help the newcomers. So they've labeled illegal immigrants that have come into the country as newcomers. And then they're saying that us who want the border defended, we all have to do our part. This is essentially defunding the police and then putting non-citizens above citizens and their safety. What are your thoughts on these actions and his comments?
These actions are very reminiscent of the Third Amendment of the Constitution, the quartering of soldiers. While these folks are not soldiers, basically they're doing the same thing. They're taking people and they're saying, oh, we must take them in now, and you're going to have to pay for it, or you're going to have to house them in your houses, or you're going to have to facilitate everything for them. I think that is absolutely ludicrous. And these folks are not, the people coordinating all this are not dumb. They know which cities feel this way, that are going to roll out the red carpet and take whatever funding they have to do, even if it's from the police, to house these people. You know what I find appalling, though? They've made no such effort to help house homeless veterans or homeless Americans. They took no steps to do any of that. As a matter of fact, they wouldn't allocate $1 for those people. But now for Americans, people who serve this country, but they'll take illegals, people who came into this country, broke the law, and they're going to make sure they roll out the red carpet and take funding from police to do so. I hope every person in Denver sees that they got bamboozled by bad politicians who don't love America, and I hope they vote them out.
Yeah. On a national scale, the head of the FBI, Christopher Wray, is saying that intel chatter within FBI networks is at the highest levels that he's seen during his multi-decade career. Any worry that you have that there may be terrorist activity gathering and building within the United States? We know hundreds or thousands of terrorists have been part of those gotaways. Any truth to that? The only reason I ask is the FBI has lost a lot of people's trust over the last few years. And so I don't want my community caught off guard, but I also don't want to be spreading fear porn if he's using this just to scare up more money for the FBI.
You know, the fact that he's admitting it now should tell people that this has been a problem for a while. We were with them in February in a very closed door meeting as sheriffs, both for the National Sheriff's Association and Major County Sheriff's Association, which, by the way, I specifically asked Stephen, I asked him directly that question. How do we restore the faith that the people have lost in the FBI? Because we feel like you are the enemy of the people now. I asked him directly. But anyway, he was telling us then that there are some real serious threats in this country. And if you don't think that the terrorism has entered this country, just look no further than the 160 plus terrorist guys that were on the terrorist watch list that have come in. But I spoke with one of our local FBI guys, and he said, Sheriff, you've got the people on the list that we can kind of monitor them. We kind of know where they're at. And then we see them coming across the border sometimes. He goes, we're concerned about the secondary and the tertiary people that are not on the list, the people that are still terrorists nonetheless, and they're willing to put in the work so that they can rise up in that terrorist organization. That should be concerning as well. One more thing. We in America have been conditioned to view terrorism in a certain way. We typically view it from the Middle East. We also view terrorism as a bomb going off, or as a plane flying to a building, or somebody walking into a crowded building and shooting a gun. What if I told you that terrorism is already upon us in the way of fentanyl poisonings? We have lost over 100,000 Americans a year over the last several years to fentanyl poisonings. Fentanyl has killed more people than any army has ever succeeded in killing American citizens. And we're losing 100,000 Americans. I would tell you we're already under a terrorist threat because China has taken those precursors, and these are the opium wars of 1893. They have patiently brought this into us, and now they put it in the hands of the cartels, who are very effective in bringing those drugs across the border into the hands of Americans. And we are losing American lives every day to fentanyl poisonings, and yet nobody seems to be sounding the alarm. I will tell you, terrorism is upon us. It looks very different than what we've been conditioned to see.
Okay. Final question, then I want to hear about your run for Senate. Many of us from the outside looking towards Washington, D.C., it feels like chaos and disorganization. Why do you think the House Republicans, even working so hard to get this majority back from the Democrats, they just seem to not be able to work together? Is this a divide over people's feelings towards Donald Trump? Is it just too many people from too many different backgrounds? Is it too many Republicans leaning Democrat? What are your thoughts on the inability to work together in DC?
We've lost DC. Look, it's kind of become a uniparty. Yeah, the people to run for office nowadays, and I'm telling you firsthand, takes an exorbitant amount of money. And the way they get you that money is you kind of have to kind of follow into their line of thinking, and they kind of want you to speak a certain way and address issues in a certain way. Like initially when I was running, people kept pressuring me on Ukraine, and I'm like, I'm not for giving more money to Ukraine. They pressure you on abortion. They pressure you. They want to get where you feel. And I say, look, guys, this is how I feel. I represent the people. And that's why all these politicians aren't endorsing me. They've gone and endorsed somebody else. And that's why, because it's about money for them, and it's about maintaining power. Even in power in the minority is still power. And I'm very concerned. I think money and lobbyists and a lot of that has really corrupted DC to a level. And look, there are good men serving, but the reality is the reason why you see ultimately we cave on the Republican side is because I think there are many people that care more about winning their elections and more about raising the money than they do about actually doing what's right and constitutional and standing by the people. And I've seen it firsthand here. That's why I'm running. I don't want to be that guy. I want to be the guy that the founding fathers intended to go back and serve. I'm not concerned about my re-election down the road. I'm concerned about doing what's right. I'm more concerned about my meeting with my maker than I am about winning elections. I'm focused on preserving God, a family, freedom, and the Constitution. And we need some Americans like that, that actually, the beauty of being a sheriff is I've been dealing with good and evil for a long time. And I've looked very evil in the face and had to walk in that door nonetheless and still go deal with it. And you need people with that strong moral compass and that fortitude that will be able to say, you know what, I get it's bad in there, but I'm going in anyway because we got to save some people. And that's the mentality we need now in DC. And so I know that's a long way of answering your way. And I think that money has corrupted a lot of these politicians. Not that they're taking money, but the thought of not being able to raise the money they need to be reelected to be able to continue to do that. And frankly, power, there's an old saying that absolute power corrupts absolutely. I saw another quote about that. It said, it's not that the power corrupts absolutely. It's that the power is magnet to those corruptible people. People who can be corruptible, they are automatically drawn to positions of power. And so we need people that understand how to wield that sort of power and do it the right way and do it in the name of the people as opposed to for themselves or their own gain.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, where can we learn more about your run for U.S. Senate?
Please come to sherifflamb.com. sherifflamb.com or sherifflambforsenate.com. Either one will get you there. You can donate some money. We're on the ballot. And look, every day that goes by, it's more and more clear that I am the only proven conservative in this race that will stand up for God, family, freedom, the Constitution. I am adamant pro-life. All of these things are things that you need a proven conservative leader and fighter in there. And Arizona, it's quickly shown that I'm that choice. And we'll win in the general election as well. And we're going to take Arizona back. And I think taking the presidency and the Senate back in Arizona, in the nation, relies on Arizona being able to win this race. And I think I'm that guy that's going to be able to do it.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. I'll make sure to leave those links down below. Thank you. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Stephen.